Howdy-ho, Andrew here. Welcome to the Onion Buns and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Oilers. So, been a busy week. Lots to talk about. So let's get right to it. Regula has been reactivated. Awesome news. Him and Nurse were the best pairing before they got injured, and they were our best pairing once they got put back together. Sadly, he just missed the last game. I have no word why. I'm just hoping it's maintenance, but nobody said anything, so I can't give you any more information than that. Kapanen has been moved to long-term injury reserve, so that's not a good sign. I guess he had a relapse or something, so he's, I think he has to be out something like 10 or 15 days now, so probably looking at minimum of 2 weeks before we start hearing about Kapanen coming back. RNH is out for an undisclosed injury. They're saying it'll take about a week, but they're not telling us what it's about. Janmark has been reactivated, and he played tonight when I was filming this on Monday, November 10th against the Blue Jackets. He was in the game and played. He didn't make a big impact, but he also wasn't a detriment, so he's only going to get better. He's been out for a bit, so that's the roster moves. The only other one to mention is it is expected that Hyman will be back in sometime during this road trip. Stauffer was saying most likely by next Monday, so, give it a week. But yeah, so sounds like we're getting healthy for the most part. And then hopefully we can get the team healthy, so to speak. Anyway, that's the roster updates for this past week. I wanted to touch on an issue. We had the worst game of our franchise against the Avalanche, where we lost 9-1, and I'll do a game recap later. But a lot of people, Stauffer and them, they're blaming the defense, and I don't think that's quite fair. And I'm not, trust me, I'm not sticking up for Bouchard or Stetcher or even Wallman when the last couple games. He had an excellent game tonight, but last couple games before that, he was not good. So I'm not sticking up for them when they play bad, but I don't think it's fair to blame the defense when there's far more logical targets. So what I wanted to say on that is, so what I wrote down is Stauffer has decided that it's all the defense's fault, and he's completely focused on Wallman. Bitching about Wallman's pinches, but not a word about Bouchard. Listen, Wallman had 2 really tough games after they separated him from Nurse. He was not good with Kulak. And yeah, he had 2 really tough games. But the worst defenseman this season on the Edmonton Oilers has been Evan Bouchard. Wallman made a couple of really poor pinches. And I'm not sticking up for him. I'm not covering for him. They were horrible decisions, and they cost us. And that's just the reality of it. But he did 2 bad pinches. Bouchard's at what, 20? Something like that, 10 or 20 of them? I honestly don't know, but it's just so many. I actually, on my notes, I wrote 20 or 30, but I think that might be an exaggeration. It's probably 10 or 20, but it's well more than 2. So if we're going to use pinches, bad pinches as the criteria to blame a defenseman, how about we blame the defenseman that's done the most of them and consistently does them? It drives me crazy, but it's like, stop trying to constantly cover for Bouchard. We can call him out. The mainstream coverers, they can call him out. He's not the Wicked Witch of the West where he's going to melt. So it drives me nuts. They won't call him out. And, they'll say, oh, well, he had a rough game, and they'll call that calling him out. No, I've watched these guys absolutely poison the pool for Skinner and Nurse in this city. So why is Bouchard not getting the same treatment as every other player when he's bad? Why? I've said this before. Why do we have to use kid gloves on him? I don't want to, and I'm not going to do it. But I also think focusing just on the defense is absolutely wrong, purely wrong. And I'm going to use the Avalanche game, our worst game in franchise history, as an example. So we had Nurse and Regula battling 3 Av players in front of our net. And to Nurse's and Regula's credit, they actually won and moved the 3 players out of the slot, which is what I've been screaming for our defense to do all season. But unfortunately, a fourth Av came in, puck got passed over to him, and he beat Pickard and put it in for the goal. So we had 4 Avs down in around our net, around our slot area, while we had 3 forwards standing on the blue line watching, waiting for Nurse and Regula to magically win this battle and get them the puck so they'll have a fast break. That is the problem, because we've seen that problem many, many, many times, and you can't blame the defensemen when our forwards are not back checking. Like, come on, can we use a little bit of common sense here? Without that happening, our defense will look much worse than they really are, because they're getting no support. And it's the same principle with Skinner and Pickard. When your team is leaving bona fide snipers in the slot uncovered, your goalies are going to get scored on. We need these forwards, all of the forwards, to start back checking consistently. It's not, I've screamed from the mountaintops, it's not only about offense. So we need more offense, but, we pay a staggering amount for offensive talent, and we're getting no offense other than from McDavid, Leon, RNH, and Rosovich this year in our defense. That's getting blamed for everything. So anyway, without the forwards back checking, our defense will look much worse than they really are. Well, 6 of 8 of them anyway, because let's face it, Bouchard and Stetcher have been horrible this season defensively as well. But what this is the media framing the issues so that you focus on what they're telling you to focus on. That's all this is. So I want to throw a couple stats out to you, because I keep hearing about how Savoy is a lock on this team and rah. So, and then they turn around and Lazar and Phillip get sent in the press box. And so, okay, Howard and Savoy are the future. Let's take a look at that. Howard has 3 points and is -2 in 15 games. But to his credit, the only power play time he gets is second, which means it's almost non-existent. He's playing on the 4th line, so he doesn't get a whole bunch of minutes, just like Lazar and Phillip. Okay, Savoy, who's been in the middle 6 to the top line all season long, even when he's put on the 4th line, he's only there for a shift or 2, and then he's moved to the 3rd line or 2nd line or 1st line. So he's been given all the chances in the world. He has 2 points and is -6 in 16 games. Yeah, I'm not seeing the offense, are you? Phillips has 3 points and -4 in 10 games. So he's played 6 less games than Savoy. He's got 2 less minus, and he's got 1 more point. And like I was saying for Howard, he gets like 6 to 8 minutes a game, max. So he never sees any of the power plays. He never gets to play with Leon or McDavid. So how is he going to the press box with those stats? But Savoy and Howard are completely untouchable. And Lazar, who's not a rookie, but Lazar has 1 point, but his plus minus is 0 in only 4 games. So between Phillips and Lazar, they only have 14 games, which is less games played than either Howard or Savoy alone. Yet they have, if you put Howard and Savoy together, let's do it this way. You put Howard and Savoy together, who have gone to play with McDavid and Leon and get power play time. But as I said, Savoy's gotten first power play, but Howard's only ever gotten second power play, so it's really inconsequential. Combined, they are 5 points, -8 in 31 games played. Okay. Then you look at Philip and Lazar. Together they are 4 points, so they're only 1 point less than Howard and Savoy. -4, so they're half of the minuses in 14 games played. Seems to me, by the stats, Phillips and Lazar are the better players. Now, I'm only being facetious here. Savoy and Howard are offensive players. Okay. Whereas Philip and Lazar, they're more defensively minded. So it makes sense that they're not getting scored on as much. And it makes sense that they're better in the NHL right at this stage, because Savoy and Howard have absolutely not figured it out in 16 games. They haven't. Phillips has. He hasn't been given any opportunities. He's had to fight and scratch and claw for everything. he's figured it out. He just needs some consistency now. And Lazar, well, he's a veteran, so he figured it out a long time ago. So he knows what he's doing out there when he's put out there. But the point is, we keep hearing about the offense. Well, I'm sorry, but Savoy and Howard aren't doing the offense. Like, I watched Savoy in the first period of today's game, and he was with McDavid and Majapani, and they stunk. They absolutely stunk. It was three individuals playing three individual games. None of them worked together with each other. And I'll give McDavid a pass. He's the driver of that line, and it's not his job to change the way he plays for his wingers. It is the job of Majapani and Savoy to adjust their game to play with McDavid, and they can't. They absolutely can't. We've seen this all season when they're up there. So yeah, it's I think the media is being very unfair to the defense and to the goalies. Our biggest problem right now, besides goal scoring, which, hopefully after tonight's game, that means we've finally broken through that mental thing. We got 5 goals tonight, so hopefully we'll see next game. But our biggest problem is our forwards are not back checking. Now, part of that might be that we have not been scoring a lot of goals, so they're all on eggshells and thinking, if I cheat, I might get a goal. But you can't sacrifice your defensive game for the hope and a prayer that you get an offensive chance. So that's the part of the game we need to really clean up on this team. So blaming the defense makes no sense at all. We need our forwards to back check, and it's that simple. All right, it's time for my favorite segment, making fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we got a couple holdovers from the Blue Jays game last week, so I'm going to clear those out, and we'll do one on... we're going to finish off with the Blue Jay ones. All right, so right off the bat, we got the three-headed dragon, Toronto Sports, Blue Jays, Toronto Raptors, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's really about the truth of it. All right, number 2 is, I don't think those are the right Blue Jays. What do you think? Confused Canadians show up to the World Series with sticks and skates. And the last one for this week is, it's Vladdy talking to the Leafs. Vladdy says, play hard as a team. And the Leafs reply with, do you have any tips that will help us? I don't get it. Really? I made a sign. What if I don't like these guys? And that's this week's episode of Making Fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It never gets old, people. It never gets old. All right, so let's do the game recaps from this week. All right, so the first game we had is Oilers versus St. Louis, November 3rd, 2025, Game 14. Lineup notes were Lazar and Phillips both in the lineup. Tomasek and Stetcher were in the press box. The Blues win 3-2. Shots on goal were 26-22 for the Oilers. Overall, not a bad game, but the exact same error by the exact same player in the dying minutes of the game, Evan Bouchard. What else can you say? I did not write down my 3 stars for this game, but obviously Bouchard was one of the slugs. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So anyway, it was a loss. Next game we had was the Oilers versus the Stars from November 4th. So this was a back-to-back 2025, Game 15. So I asked right off the bat, so which Evan Bouchard shows up tonight? It's a fair question. He's been so erratic this season. So this game went to a shootout. Edmonton shooters were McDavid, Leon, and RNH. McDavid didn't score. Leon did. RNH didn't. Dallas, Robertson, Rantanen, and Johnson. And Robinson and Johnson both scored. Dallas wins 4-3. We got a point, but this should have been an Oilers win. When you're up 3-1, you need to pay attention to your own zone and not leave your opponents wide open. So my 3 stars were Rosevich, McDavid, and Leon. 2 slugs were Frederick and Knobloch. Rosevich continues to shine. McDavid was flying, and Leon scored for the Stars. And then for the slugs, Frederick is really starting to worry me with his play. He's not been playing physical. He fixed that in a later game, but he had not been playing physical. So Knobloch has has to be held to account for only focusing on offense and who he's putting out when we just need to play defensively. That was the problem in this game, is he kept putting out Bouchard, and just he doesn't want to trust his defensive players. So anyway, so that's what it was. It was a 4-3 loss in shootout. Welcome to the worst game in Oiler history. Oilers versus Avalanche, November 8th, 2025, Game 16. So I had a lot of notes on this game, but I'm just going to go to the score because honestly, it would take too long to recap this game. There was that much scoring against us. So this game did not go to overtime. End of the third, 35-24 for the Avs. Shots on net. Score 9-1 for the Avalanche. Oilers lose. What I wrote is, thank God that game is over. Maybe the team can decide to show up and play next game versus Columbus. This was an ugly, ugly, ugly game. 3 stars. Really, there was no stars, but for argument's sake. Number 1, Noah Phillip. Number 2, Regular. And number 3, Nurse. Phillip was the only Oiler that showed up in this game. And he's a third line, fourth line center. So if you're counting on him to win, you're in trouble. Regular and Nurse were average at best, which is still good enough to get him a star in this game. But they were our best pairing. So that's why they got the stars. But it wasn't not really cheering them on by that one. And the 3 slugs, rest of the team, both goalies, all coaches. That was the 3 slugs of that game. That was a horrible, horrible, horrible game. And you can go watch my video. I do a full, 30-minute game recap of it and go through it all. We did not show up for the game. Final game of this week's recaps is Oilers versus Blue Jackets, November 10th, 2025. Game 17 on Amazon Prime. During the pre-show, we found out that Kapanen was moved to LTIR. RNH is out with an undisclosed injury. Janmark is reactivated. And Lazar draws back in for Tomasic. McDavid scores probably one of his many highlight reel of the year type goals tonight. And it was a beaut. This game went to overtime. Oilers scored at 4:04 of the overtime. Huge save by Skinner. Wallman picks up the rebound and sends it up to Rosevich, who is catching Blue Jackets on a line change and gets a breakaway and scores. Beautiful game-finishing goal. 3 stars were McDavid, 2 goals. McDavid absolutely took over this game in the third period. It was a one-man show. Rosevich got the game-winning goal, and he was really good this whole game. And Wallman, 2 goals and 1 assist. So he really redeemed himself after some really bad games. The 3 slugs were Howard, Savoy, and Mangiapane. What I wrote is McDavid absolutely took over the game. Rosevich continues to be the big moment player. Wallman, well, the old saying is you got to be lucky to be good, and Wallman got lucky today with 2 goals that just were not your traditional goals. As for the slugs, Howard was not good tonight and looked outmatched in a more physical game. Savoy was a pure perimeter player, easily knocked off the puck. And the skill is obvious. And on any other team, he might be in the top 6. But on this team, he doesn't have the skill for the top 6, and he doesn't have the grit and physicality for the bottom 6. And Mangiapane did 2 brutal turnovers in this game that they were inexcusable. So that's got him the 3rd slug. Yeah, we got lucky that we won this game, but we won it. And that's all that matters. So move on to the next game. And that's my Let's Talk video for this week. If you like this video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders, and I do appreciate it. Takes 1 second to subscribe, costs you absolutely nothing, helps me immensely. Just hit the subscribe button on the bottom of the screen. Always feel free to leave a comment. I encourage everybody to come in, leave a comment, tell me what you're thinking. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Whatever. It's all good. And also leaving a comment really does help me with the YouTube algorithm and getting more eyes on my videos. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.